iPhone 11 better because it's new, right? Alright, we're all done. You don't need to watch the rest of the video. But no, today's video is not just saying which is overall better between the new iPhone 11, which is a direct successor to, of course, the iPhone XR, but more weighing the pros/cons, since you can still buy this brand new from Apple today at the $150 decreased price point. So with $100 between the starting prices of these two phones, what are you gaining for that $100? And also, what are you losing for saving that extra $100? Let's begin. Before talking about all the changes Apple made with the iPhone 11, which of course we can dive into all day, but I think it's also important to remember all of the things that haven't changed between these two phones despite there being a $100 price difference between them. For one, the display. It's the exact same pixel density as before, exact same contrast ratio, and exact same brightness in terms of nits. There's literally no difference physically from the front of these devices between the screen-to-body ratio, between the detail you're getting out of the displays. So if you're torn between the two of them, keep in mind physically, if you just care about how the front of your new iPhone looks, there's not going to be any difference here. The other thing that doesn't change is the accessories and charging capabilities included, so you're still getting a 5-watt charge brick with both of these, both of them capable with fast charging if you want to buy extra fast charging bricks and cables. Both of them, of course, ship with Lightning, and the dimensions, the schematics of the two are actually identical. Despite the fact that the iPhone 11 had quite a few changes added to it, it's the exact same weight, down to the 1/10 of a gram of the iPhone XR, at least listed from Apple's website, by the way. So somehow they were able to add that whole extra camera, add some improved water resistance, and give it an extra hour of battery life, despite both of these phones weighing the exact same thing. But if you're curious, yes, you can buy an iPhone 11 case and have it fit on an iPhone XR, because form factor wise and button placement wise, these things are exactly the same. The only difference, of course, is you probably shouldn't get a XR case for your iPhone 11 because it will likely not fit that upgraded camera module as well. But regardless, I still think it's worth mentioning these are both made from the same type of aluminum. There's different colors, of course, between the two of them, but yeah, same type of glass, same glossy backs that we had before. It's not a matte finish on the iPhone 11 like it is on the Pro, and all those things have stayed the same. Now when we start getting into what are you gaining by spending the extra $100 on the iPhone 11, whether or not it's worth that extra price will come down to your personal preference. So if the things I'm about to list sound very compelling to you and very interesting and something you want to make sure you have in your phone, then by all means the iPhone 11 may be the best choice for you. Biggest upgrade, of course, between these two models are the cameras. The iPhone 11 has substantially better camera performance, both with its next generation smart HDR, even ignoring the ultra-wide lens or ignoring the front-facing camera. Just overall pictures and videos are going to look better with this improved dynamic range, even though the megapixels themselves haven't changed. Both of these rock regular wide-angle 12 megapixel lenses, but of course, as we can all see, the iPhone 11 sports that ultra-wide. This is absolutely something you're not getting the option for with the iPhone XR, so if you love those shots, filling more into the room, getting more stuff into the picture as much as possible, it can definitely be a lot of fun. The iPhone 11 is the way to go. It's also worth mentioning that the front-facing camera has seen a megapixel increase up to 12, and also being a wider angle that's automatically engaged when you rotate the iPhone 11 into landscape mode. But if you wanted to activate a wider angle view, still in portrait mode, you still have that option, but you have a 12 megapixel shooter on the front now, whereas if you go with the iPhone XR, you're limited to 7, and it's not going to be as wide angle as it is on the 11. We can bicker all day about whether or not Apple could add these to older phones, but the fact of the matter is, they haven't. The iPhone 11 has night mode, which basically allows you to take long exposure shots in very, very dark situations, and somehow, magically, the iPhone is able to bring color and to bring detail out of situations where even your eye can't see that well. I've been messing around with night mode for a while, and I'll go more in depth into how cool it is in my full-length iPhone 11 Pro Max review, but given the ultra-wide and night mode behaves identically between the iPhone 11 and the 11 Pro Max, I figured no reason to talk about it today. All you need to know is that night mode is really, really cool and is going to be a substantially noticeable difference over the iPhone XR, which has no night mode of any kind. It's a decent lens on the back. I don't mean to criticize the XR because it's only a year old. It still has a very, very good camera. You can take excellent excellent portrait mode shots with this, both on the front and rear facing cameras. Overall, it's just a very solid shooter, but yeah, obviously the iPhone 11 outperforms it in several ways. You also have the option to shoot 4K at 60 video on the front facing camera with the iPhone 11, whereas if you want to shoot front facing video on the iPhone XR, you're going to be limited to 1080p at 60 FPS. Aside from just the camera upgrades, which we've gone into now, the iPhone 11 also has improved water resistance at IP68, which means you can drop it in about 6 feet of water and it'll be okay for around 30 minutes. After that, Apple says no promises, whereas on the iPhone XR, you're only guaranteed 3 feet of depth up to 30 minutes with its IP67 water resistance, which means this one is going to last in the pool a little bit longer than this one. And the iPhone 11 also supports Dolby Atmos, so when it comes to the stereo speakers that both of these phones are rocking, the iPhone 11 is going to sound a little bit more clear, it's going to sound a little bit more loud. Honestly, I don't think you'll even notice the difference unless you put both of them side by side and do a straight audio comparison. Then you may be able to say, oh, okay, iPhone 11's a little better, but if you're not comparing them directly next to each other, both phones sound perfectly fine with the stereo speakers. And of course, the iPhone 11 has the updated A13 chip with its 3rd generation neural engine, which does mean, yes, in Geekbench and probably in exporting videos and that kind of thing, the iPhone 11 is going to pull ahead of the iPhone XR by a little bit, but no disrespect to the XR, the A12 still has a very, very powerful CPU, faster than that of anything you'll find in an Android these days. But if you want the phone with the fastest CPU, the iPhone 11 is still going to win, which may not feel like a big difference right now, but if you buy a phone and you intend on having it for a very, very long time, there's a pretty decent chance that the iPhone 11 could end up getting 1 more year of support over the iPhone XR, but that of course is guessing. There could be another situation where both of these phones will end on the same operating system, but we don't know that for sure. The iPhone 11 also rocks the U1 chip, which is going to be a little bit helpful for tracking it with Find My apps in the future, or being able to airdrop to other devices, being able to point the iPhone 11 in specific directions and prioritize devices that it's pointed to, for airdrop support, which is a little thing, but most of it's going to be used for tracking if you ever lose your iPhone 11. And that pretty much sums it up. I know Apple talked about how Face ID works from more angles on the iPhone 11, but honestly, between testing my XS Max to the Pro Max and testing the XR to the iPhone 11, I don't really see that much of angle variety. I don't really see this unlocking a lot easier than this, so that's why I'm not even bringing it up. You should just expect Face ID to work fine on the both of them. And that pretty much covers all of the major differences. So now, whether or not those differences, the camera upgrades or the extra CPU boost you get or the extra sound quality you get with the speakers, all whether or not that's worth it to you for the extra $100, all I can really do at this point is give you my personal feedback, which is the iPhone 11 is definitely a great go-to at $700 for someone who is looking for not a $1,000 iPhone, but still something with an incredibly great camera. The front-facing camera just knocks it out of the park with the iPhone 11. Night mode is just bizarre how well it works. Really, really low light situations suddenly look great, and you can mount it on a tripod and set up like 30-second long exposures, and it will literally take pictures of the night sky. You can see the stars. These are things that you won't be able to do natively with the iPhone XR, though I have seen people buy third-party apps that allow them to do similar things to night mode and that kind of thing. But the iPhone XR is definitely not something I think a lot of people should shy away from, because there's a huge demographic of people out there who are just looking for a good, reliable smartphone, and they don't really care how groundbreaking the photo and video performance is, because they just use their phone for consuming media, contacting people, and overall just being a reliable experience. And you know you're still going to get years and years of iOS updates with the iPhone XR. For this thing, only at $600, I think that's a very compelling offer, even today in 2019. Even though this phone is a year old, the fact that Apple is still providing it at $150 cheaper, I think this is still going to be an incredibly compelling option out there for people considering upgrading their iPhone, most likely coming from either the iPhone 8 or lower series. If you're on an iPhone 7 or 6S and you've never used an iPhone 10 with an OLED display equipped, then these upgrades are going to be very substantial and enjoyable for you. If you're on a 2017 iPhone 10 and you're considering upgrading to an iPhone 11, you may notice the decrease in quality from the display, but honestly, I still think the Liquid Retina display on both of these is perfectly fine. It's not the best ever in a smartphone, of course, but it gets the job done. The iPhone 11 battery life is just a little bit better. I mean, Apple themselves on their site says it lasts up to 1 hour longer, but I've used the iPhone XR extensively. This has a really, really good battery life that can get you through the day, and just a couple weeks ago, it was the best battery life you could ever get in an iPhone. Now it's only been surpassed by the new iPhones, of course. But one thing I definitely think a lot of people should consider is the storage options. If you want to have more than 64 gigs of storage on your phone, the iPhone XR can still be configured to 128 128 gigs and only for $50 more, which means that for $650 you can get a 128 gig iPhone XR, where if you want to opt for that iPhone 11 with its 64 gigs, that's going to cost you another $50. So if storage is an important feature for you, the iPhone XR may be the winner. But then again, if you don't mind spending a little bit more, an extra $50 on the iPhone 11 starting price will also grant you a 128 gig and also all the new amazing camera features. So honestly, it all comes down to you. I think the basic argument is that if you care about pictures and video, get the iPhone 11. If you just want a phone for consuming media, want it to work reliably, and you want to be in that iOS ecosystem, get the iPhone XR. Save yourself some money or opt for some better storage. Use that extra $100 on a battery case or a really protective case or some accessory you would like to have along with your XR. So that sums up everything I wanted to talk about today. Whichever phone you ended up buying or whichever phone you were planning on purchasing soon, feel free to let me know by hitting me up over on Twitter or joining our Discord. This is your Apple Sheep here. I'll see you guys in the next one.